Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So these headlines drive me crazy. So you're going to see a headline today that scientists have discovered that we have a second heart. And it's in plain sight. Doctors should have known about it. And you look at this going, well, doctors are idiots. Really? They didn't know we had a second heart sitting around? No, we do not have a second heart. Okay. I don't understand. I don't understand why these headlines. It's all about the clickbait and the advertisers. We do not have a second heart. Well, trust me, I spent hours upon hours in the anatomy lab in the middle of the night doing our dissections. I have never seen a second heart. But what they're talking about is how many parts to our circulatory system pump. Yeah, they had to do that clickbait for that. Yeah, they did. And so, when they describe that the aorta, for example, contracts, dilates, contracts, helps propulse blood. Well, duh, of course. You have a pump, you have a conduit, but that conduit is not necessarily horizontal. It's going against gravity. It's going against a bunch of movements. And our vascular system is extremely intricate. I got to tell you, God or nature, whatever you believe in, created such an amazingly engineered body. So our heart, there's nothing else like it, our heart. Okay, yes, there might be some genetic defects where somebody might have multiple chambers or something like that. But for most of us, our heart is four-chambered. And so it takes blood, it pumps it to the lungs to oxygenate it, goes down, the lungs shut the blood to the left ventricle, left atrium to left ventricle. The heart then pumps. It goes through. It can't go through a very small, radius or diametered conduit, so it needs something large like the aorta. The blood then gets pumped with aortic strength to the body, but then the blood, the tissues have to grab whatever oxygen it wants, and then have the blood move on and wait for new oxygenated blood. So this now deoxygenated blood needs to get back up to the heart. Well, there's also little valvular systems within the veins that also help propel it up. So then the blood goes up through the right atrium, then right ventricle, the deoxygenated, to get pumped into the lungs to oxygenate and then come back down so that the process could start all over again. So the heart is a pump. And the reason why I'm spending some time on this is you don't want to piss off the heart. Okay. And so you making all these, headlines here talking about, well, it's not all that. And, there's something else. No. Do not diminish at all the power of the pump. This heart pump, gets all the credit, gets all the glory. But in order to pump blood throughout your body, it has to, have help from its conduit system, from the pipes. Plumbers could be fantastic cardiologists because they understand piping better than anybody else. So they say that the aorta acts like a second heart because it stretches and recoils to push blood. Well, we know that. But where this is coming from is a team from University of South Carolina found that the aorta physically stretches when the heart beats and then recoils to push blood forward in a process called wave pumping. They say this recoiling action is in sync with the heartbeat, sends a surge of blood into the aorta, And then when the heart relaxes and the aorta recoils, it pushes blood forward. Now, I think we already kind of knew that. That was something that I when we did our cardiovascular surgery rotation, we kind of knew that happened. But, the moral to this is, our body is very, very specialized. And when you hear people have like an aortic aneurysm or an aortic dissection, anything happens to the aorta, you could be done for. So not only do you need your heart, but you also need your aorta. You also need the arteries. You need the veins. You need your brain functioning. And so it's not just all about heart health. It's not just all about brain health. It's everything. And so it just kind of reminds us that we have other body parts at play and that everything needs to work in sync. The reason why I don't like these headlines is it's kind of a downer. When you actually stop, people ask, why do doctors, not take things lightly? Why do they always seem to be serious? I mean, a lot of the doctor friends I have are pretty, they'll be funny. I mean, their humor is more like dad jokes, but for the most part, most of the doctors I know can keep it light, but people look at doctors as you're always very serious. You're always, because if you knew what we knew, we walk around thinking, right, that we could be a ticking time bomb. And so the more you think about it, the more you panic about it. Just like when I fly in a plane, do you think I actually sit there and calculate how many thousands of feet we are high and how many hundreds of miles an hour we're going and what, where there could be a flock of birds? And I wouldn't fly then. So you just kind of have to separate and move on. But when you do, when you are concerned about your heart health, this is the take-home message. Many of you are getting these like Apple Watches or these little things at home where you think you're doing an EKG. And patients will call up saying they have chest pain. And I'm like, well, you need to go in and you need to get your heart checked. They're like, nope, I already did. My Apple Watch said I'm fine. You have much more to your cardiovascular system than what your watch can pick up. I'm very grateful for the tech, because they could let you know if your heart rate is abnormal and you could be going into AFib. They can sometimes help you with your oxygenation status. But to get a full, picture of what's going on cardiovascularly, a lot of these things that are being pitched are not necessarily at all adequate. And so when we do examine the heart, we do examine the aorta. We teach medical students, when you listen to the heart, you don't just listen to heart. You also, listen to the carotids. You also listen, and check for bruits, which are sounds of turbulence, in the aorta, etc. So it's pretty comprehensive. So I get many people want to have their own testing at home, but understand there's a little bit more to it. 1-877-DOC-Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Now, don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on X or Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. If you ever do miss any of our shows, did I say duh? Yeah, I tell you, it's one of those days. If you ever miss any of our shows, go to drdaliah.com. So, RFK Jr. is going to tell the CDC to stop recommending fluoride, according to AP News. The infusions of fluoride into our water system has been pretty controversial of late because of all the fluoride exposure kids are getting with their toothpaste, with their vitamins. And an NIH study during the Biden administration, not the Trump administration, during the Biden administration, talked about how high fluoride levels was affecting kids' IQs. So is it about time for us to revisit or stop infusing fluoride into our water systems? So we're being told that U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, according to Bloomberg and AP News, is going to tell public officials to stop recommending fluoridating the drinking water. He disclosed his plans to the Associated Press yesterday during an event in Salt Lake City. He also said he's assembling a task force to focus on the issue. Now, why Utah? Well, because Utah was the first state to ban fluoride in drinking water. That happened, I think, a week ago. So Kennedy has said for a while that removing fluoride from drinking water is a priority. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin is also reviewing the scientific information. And the reason why fluoride was started is because 80 some years ago, right? I think it was in the 1940s. Doctors, dentists were really, really concerned about the dental health of children, of adults. And they found that if we increased our fluoride, it was actually a magnificent, sort of move at the time. We could protect people's dental health. You protect their dental health. You protect their heart health. You protect a variety of other factors, and they end up having longer longevity, increasing their lifespan. But that's because back then, toothpaste, I have toothpaste from the 1920s, 1930s, where it was like a powder. You would put the powder onto your hand. You'd add a little bit of water, and it was like zinc. I think it was like a zinc oxide. And then you would use a brush, and then you would use that to brush your teeth for those individuals who would do that. Paste started to, I believe, come out in the 30s and 40s, but it wasn't necessarily infused with fluoride. So at the time, they said, look, we need to increase people's fluoride. And dental professionals, doctors thought this was a very good move. And at the time it was. But according to the CDC, they say 72% of the U.S. population in 2022 was connected to fluoridated water systems. Now, many individuals don't know if they're getting fluoride in their water or not. But what are the majority of the toothpaste? Fluoride toothpaste. And if you're using it 2-3 times a day, well, now we start to wonder, well, can you get too much? They say state and local governments oversee fluoridation in community water systems. So the national oversight, I believe, is a little tricky. I don't think RFK Jr. can be the one to stop local jurisdictions from doing that. As you saw, Utah, I think it was Governor Cox who made the right declaration. So in Utah, they had to do it from a state level. But he can make that recommendation to the CDC, and the CDC recommendations hold a lot of water. Now, the EPA does have the authority. So this is where I guess the government could get in if the EPA says, look, this is now causing harm. And, we will sue you and litigate you to the full extent of the law if we think you are hurting people. The EPA could do that. But the Department of Health and Human Services overseeing CDC, now you know why there's a lot of restructuring going on, like with the Department of Education. Like, why is the Department of Education doing student loans and not the Treasury? Yeah, but that's how the government works. But the Health and Human Services overruns the CDC, which I accept. That makes sense. And if they make that recommendation, now what happens is states and cities and local communities have to buck the CDC's recommendation. Now, just because RFK Jr. recommends it doesn't mean the CDC follows. However, if there is the science and the CDC has, especially the study during the Biden administration from the NIH, saying, look, people could be overexposed to fluoride, getting fluoridosis, which could affect them neurologically. Then they can make a recommendation saying, look, we're only going to recommend fluoride in, either certain communities that don't have access to fluoride toothpaste, or we're going to improve people's access to fluoride toothpaste so we don't have to fluoridate the water anymore. So you would think this would have been done years ago, but, it's only now being talked about. But what I like about RFK Jr. with this is, as Speaker Johnson had said today, look, this is something that needs to be looked at. Why aren't we looking at it further? There's concern. Parents are concerned. Why aren't we? And, when Bernie Sanders had criticized RFK Jr. about certain vaccines, saying we don't need to relitigate the science, that was such a very wrong statement. The science always changes. And the reason why the science always changes is because our body changes. Our environment changes. It blows my mind that the same politicians who talk about climate change and says things are changing in the that don't, I guess, subscribe to, then science changes. If you're saying climate changes and that we are now doomed because the earth is getting warmer, then how do you also in the same breath say we don't need to relitigate the science? You're being hypocritical. And I just don't understand it. It's just like, my body, my choice. Well, then why did you mandate the vaccine and fire military and fire nurses? Now, it's very hypocritical. And it shows that these politicians are just kind of doing things, based on whatever the political narrative is. And then they will, as the art of law allows, argue how much different climate change is in terms of scientific theory and deduction and scientific process from a scientific process that has to do with vaccines. And come on. So, the vaccines, I find our vaccine program to be a work of art in terms of being able to stave off polio, stave off hepatitis. What we have been able to do with vaccines, which I credit to century-old homeopaths, because that's where the idea came from. And that's how the smallpox vaccine started, to treat fire with fire, or hair of the dog, so to speak. But when a parent says they're concerned because a family member is acting different, if a parent is concerned that their child that's very healthy is now getting injected with 6 shots, we do have a duty to reevaluate the science. I am very comfortable with the polio vaccine, with the tetanus vaccine, but did anybody study, well, what happens if you give a bunch of vaccines at once? And what happens if that child has a little bit of a different health path than another infant did? Did we study that? We do know that there are side effects to everything, whether it's your acetaminophen or ibuprofen, whether it's being on a cell phone too much. We know that there's always side effects. So to say we're not going to relitigate the science, what we're trying to do is understand what those side effects are, how to minimize individuals who may get those side effects from being harmed, how to identify who is more prone to getting the side effects. And I think that's an ongoing science. So here we are with fluoride. The science back in the 30s and 40s said we need to put fluoride in the water because people aren't having access to fluoride. Well, it's about time somebody relitigates it now that we do have access to fluoride. It's common sense to me, people. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo! Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. So the panic people had with 2 or 3 days of stock market tumbling, as I said, was not something to panic about. In fact, it was a great opportunity to buy some NVIDIA or buy some stock that was too rich for your blood and too rich for my blood for a good couple years. And seeing stocks drop gave people an opportunity to buy in. So you started to see kind of a moderate sort of In fact, NASDAQ actually rose yesterday while Dow Jones had dropped, but not as bad as the previous days. And now, very strongly, very nice rebound that's happened since the opening bell. Now, does that mean the tariffs are working? Does that mean we're in the clear? No, it means it is going to go up and down. The more we hear from, MSNBC and CNBC saying this is a catastrophe, this is whatever, and they try to panic people or people think, well, I better sell now, you're going to see this panic and people are going to sell. But when you have, investors going, there's some fire sales right now. I think a lot of people are realizing that. And so people are buying. Another thing, and I'm no finance expert, but I think one thing that is a very positive is we're being told that I think 70 different countries have reached out to President Trump to negotiate the tariffs, which means he was right and it's working. I looked at it as he had nothing to lose. Now, people say, well, of course, the stock market could drop. The stock market's going to drop anyway. Stock market's going to go up and down. It was inflated the last couple of years. It's going to correct. It's going to go up and down. And then it's going to eventually trend higher. That's just what the stock market does. But to make tariffs go away or to decrease the amount of tariffs, it's a brilliant move. It's about time. And look, I'm not, here to just, being, praising the current president because he was president before and didn't address the tariffs. Neither did Obama. Neither did Biden. So I'm surprised it took this long, but I understand because if Trump tried to do this in his first term, it wouldn't have happened. Now people know he's got nothing to lose. And he's like, we're going to fix this. You're not going to throw COVID at us. You're not going to, try to kick me off the ballot. You're not going to try to shoot me again. Okay, I got nothing to lose. So we're going to stop getting screwed over by other countries. And so it's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had said that, Trump, better than anyone at giving himself maximum leverage. And what he's done is we outlined the tariffs on April 2nd and then gave countries several days to think about it. He said, as I advised on many shows on April 2nd, I suggested that the foreign officials keep your cool, that you do not escalate, and come to us with your offers on how you're going to drop tariffs, how you're going to drop non-tariff barriers, how you're going to stop your currency manipulation, how you're going to stop the subsidized financing, and at a point, President Trump will be ready to negotiate. And so I guess Japan was one of the first ones to reach out. So the Japanese prime minister has been, I guess, talking to Trump today. And, because we buy from Japan, cars, chips, a lot of things. And so this is pretty, I'm not here to say everything Trump said was right. I mean, he called it with COVID, said this came from China. He called it the China virus, not the most eloquent, but he wasn't wrong. He even predicted that this got leaked August 2019, which is something I thought, because I was seeing patients in November of 2019 that were negative for flu, but were really sick. So for it to be in America by November 2019, the COVID virus, my guess is the leak had to happen at least a few months prior before it had a chance to spread across the globe. So so when he says, look, it's going to be bumpy, but we're going to be more independent from these countries and not let them screw us over, I don't think he's wrong. And that's why his poll numbers have been rising. People have been talking about how, what is his final goal? Is his goal for us to save money and not get screwed and knock down all the tariffs? Or is his goal to get this extra money from the other countries? See, one thing Trump likes to do, just like with the wall, he said Mexico's going to pay for it. And I don't know if that ever actually happened, but he wants to show his, I think, big dream is, well, one is to stop the Ukraine-Russia war. Also, try to minimize the constant issues with Hamas in the Middle East, get the Nobel Peace Prize for that. But one thing he really, really wants to do is get rid of the IRS and make it the ERS, where we don't have to pay to survive. We don't have to pay the taxes. Other countries are paying us for all that we do. We will bring in enough money from other countries that we don't have to tax our citizens. Now, that's bold. Is he going to make it happen? I don't know. Can't do it in just one term or a half a term, especially with the midterms coming. But I got to tell you, the theory behind that is pretty damn enticing. And if our American-made goods are really good and other countries are willing to pay for it, then we could bring in a lot of revenue. People, like he said, $5 million a pop for you to come to the United States. Now, this isn't necessarily for refugees or people seeking asylum, but you have a lot of wealthy people that want to move to the United States. Well, then you got to pay. Yeah, I am taking a trip overseas, and you had to pay to get a visa. You had to pay to. There's always fees, even when you fly into another country. They charge you, so that's nothing new. But he's going to try and make this a reality, and when we talk a lot about the economy, because with psychology and health, it's all related. But people panic, and when people panic, they don't want to be the one saying, "Well, you lost it all." This is why gambling is so. People who gamble in casinos are at such risk of mental health disorders. Because they had the money, they lost it. And they don't want to leave without getting that money back. And then they dig themselves a bigger hole. Which is why Kenny Rogers, right? You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. You need to know when to walk away. And people don't know how to do that in the casino. See, for me, if I lose $20, I'm done. I lost $20, I'm out. That's it. I'm not going any deeper. But people are like, no, I want to win my 1,000 back. I want to win my 5,000 back. And so same thing happens with the stock market. They're like, but I had thousands of dollars of stock in NVIDIA. It lost. Maybe it went down by half. And then now, how do I get that back? And so you know what? You don't lose money in the stock market if you don't sell the crappy stock that bottomed out. Then you didn't lose the money. Remember, you bought stock. If you have 100 shares of something or 50 shares of it, you still own those shares. It's volatile what they're worth. And yes, it would be nice to sell high, but when the prices do go up, when do you sell? The big question of the year last year was, when do you sell your NVIDIA stock? Is that the new Apple? Those people say, no, I bought Apple in the 80s, Apple stock. How do you know your NVIDIA isn't the 1980s for NVIDIA? And so it's rising, so nobody wants to sell because they don't want to sell a stock that's still rising. So you end up just not holding it or selling it at the wrong time. So the moral to this is, don't panic. Don't let media headlines or other people's psychology mess with you. Get a financial planner or a financial advisor. Learn, take some classes in the stock market. And also don't invest what you can't lose. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
We are back on Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So some of us will work out, exercise a lot. I was in Colorado, did a lot of hiking and climbing. And then I didn't even want to move on Monday. So I didn't really work out on Monday. I did a little bit because I have to work out every day. But maybe I had 4,000 steps total the whole day. I mean, I was hurting. I was sore, you know. Did a little better the next day. And I feel guilty when I don't work out every day. And people are always, looking up, how much should I be exercising? How much? And so the recommendations from public health officials are to work out, I think the American Heart Association, work out 150 minutes a week. I'm not a big fan of that. I'll tell you why in a sec. But they recommend to do at least 30 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise 5 days a week. 30 minutes. So they recommend 150 minutes. And they say you can be flexible. You could do all 150 minutes on the weekend. Or you could spread it out throughout the week. And, yes, it has some merit. But I'm more of the thinking you need to get up a little bit every day and do a little bit of a workout. And the reason why is you let one day go and another day go and another day go. Now it's like 3 weeks. Now it's 4 weeks. Now it's 6 months. So if you can't go to bed without brushing your teeth or taking your shower, or whatever your daily routine is, then you can't go to bed until you did your exercise. And I, being a family medicine doctor who also worked ER and urgent care, I've seen enough blood clots and I've seen enough arthritis and other issues where if somebody is not exercising or moving around all day, that's dangerous. Now, it's interesting because most athletes don't go by those numbers. They don't need numbers. They're like, I need to do my run. Or I need to walk the dog. I need to fast walk. I need to just lift some weights. I'm going to hit the gym. And it's not necessarily let me check off the box. 149 minutes, 150 minutes. I'm good. So just like with dieting, if you're like, I'm not going to eat sugar, but I'm going to do the diet cookies, the sugar-free cookies, and I'm going to try to eat a veggie burger. Look, if you're not going to be in it for eating vegetables and low carbs and low meat, you're trying to substitute for things, to get your cravings. It's going to be harder to lose the weight. Well, what do the studies show? Well, now we have another study that is saying you might not necessarily need the daily exercise. The CDC, as well as American Heart Association, I believe, and others, say you have to do 150 minutes of activity a week. But there's a new study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that working out just 1 or 2 days a week could have the same benefits as exercising every day. Now, these are researchers in China. They investigated the impact of concentrated activity compared to evenly distributed activity, referred to as like the weekend warrior pattern, where most of your activity is completed in 1 or 2 days. And researchers used data from the UK Biobank, looked at participants' physical activity measurements from 2013 to 2015. They looked at those who were inactive, active, weekend warrior, or active regular, meaning everyday active. Within an 8-year follow-up, 4,000 participants died from all causes, 667 from heart disease, 1,700 from cancer, according to a press release. But they didn't see any discernible difference in mortality risk between the active regular and the active weekends group. They say engaging in physical activity concentrated within 1 or 2 days was related with a similar reduction in mortality risk as even more evenly spread activity. So they say our findings are particularly significant for individuals who find it challenging to engage in regular physical activity due to time constraints. So you see, this wasn't an issue when we would have to walk to work or catch a bus or the subway, or because you were walking, you were moving every day. When I see these videos from the 1920s and 1940s of people walking around New York, they're all slim. Why? Because they had to walk all the time. See, now that we drive, we have a carport. Our car is right there on the sidewalk next to our apartment or at our house. So we jump in the car, we find a close parking place at work, and then we go and sit at a desk. We're not moving. We're not walking. We're using, we're transporting ourselves. And so we now have to actively figure out ways to exercise. Better Home and Gardens, I think it was that, back in 1900, had a prediction. The author had a prediction of what the world would be like in the year 2000. And this was in 1900. And so what things would be like 100 years from then. And they said that people would be exercising by choice, like a gymnasium. They described this because it wasn't really that common back then. I understand on the Titanic, they did have a little bit of a workout room, but that this would be something that where people would be exercising, more judiciously because they want to. And it's because, as we are moving less, we need to keep moving more. So then should you just do the weekend warrior thing? Well, it depends on what you're doing on the weekend. If you're actually doing some really good hiking, or you're doing some cycling, and you can't do that during the week because you work. So on the weekends, you're going to hit the bike, or you're going to hit the trails, or you're going to hit the slopes. It helps. You're exercising. Now, you got to be careful with exercising too much because sometimes you can put yourself into rhabdo. I get patients who are calling up going, I feel sick. I can't move. My urine's brown. Well, rhabdomyolysis is where you start to have muscle breakdown. You work out so much and so hard that the muscles break down. The proteins in the muscles clog up the kidneys. You could go into kidney failure. And so when you're really, really sore after a workout, we like to monitor you because we want to make sure you're not going into rhabdomyolysis, which some people can. So I prefer more moderation. But if you're like, look, I got to work all week, but then I'm going to hit it hard on the weekend, hydrate, watch for severe muscle aches, it's better than nothing. And so for those of you who are like, look, I can't, I'm not motivated, but my friend will go with me to the gym on Saturday, I'll take it. But for those of you that feel like you don't get enough exercise, you got to come up with something. Whether it's folding your laundry and going back and forth between the laundry room with each thing of clothes so that now you're making 5 or 6 trips as opposed to 1. Whether it's putting on one of your favorite songs on YouTube and dancing to it. Whether it's doing jumping jacks every commercial. I was watching the season finale of Lotus, and they always break for ads because I don't have the ad free. So in those ads, you could get up, you could lift some weights, you could do some jumping jacks, you could run in place, you could do some side bends. But I prefer that every day you do something. I don't care if it's yoga stretches. I don't care if it's some crunches. I don't care if it's walking up and down the stairs, walking the dog. Now, a big mistake people make is, I walked the dog, so I did my workout. That's not, I mean, with my dog, it's not a workout because she's stopping and smelling, and then she's pretending to go pee-pee because she doesn't want me to keep walking. So she's like, I have to pee, just because she wants to still explore. And so you end up standing still for most of the walk. But you know what? It's still something. If you're taking the dog out for a walk and it lasts an hour, that's good. But you got to find ways to kind of keep things going. While you're sitting at your desk, tap your feet. Tap your feet. Clench. Kegel. Suck in your stomach. But keep moving. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.